I've seen way too many people grab a cheap 15-inch notebook, think they've scored a deal, and then end up wrestling with a dim screen, a keyboard that feels like it's made for typing novels, and a battery that quits the moment a game tries to load. That regret is real, and it's why I hesitate before I press buy now on any laptop that promises gaming power without looking at the whole picture. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Dell XPS 14 we're talking about tries to sit in that sweet spot, a premium-look ultrabook that also throws an Intel Core Ultra 7 255H and Intel Arc graphics into the mix, plus a 3.2K OLED panel that can swing from 48Hz up to 120Hz. The first question I asked myself was simple: can a 14-inch chassis really stay cool while you're pushing a modern game for an hour? And will it still feel comfortable on a coffee shop table after a marathon of work and play? I dug into forums, scanned a handful of long-form reviews, and even watched a few YouTubers stress test the same configuration. What came through was a pattern. The XPS line has always nailed the look and the feel, but the sustained performance part can be a little hit or miss depending on how you use it. Let's start with the display because that's where the XPS 14 really tries to justify its premium price. The 14.5-inch OLED panel delivers deep blacks and punchy colors that make open-world games feel immersive, and the variable refresh rate means you get buttery smoothness in fast shooters without the power hog of a locked 144Hz panel. In practice, I found the 120Hz mode works well for titles that support it, like Valorant or Fortnite, while the 48Hz mode still looks gorgeous for story-driven games where the frame rate isn't the main focus. The biggest downside is the power draw. OLED screens love to be bright, and when you push the brightness up for a sunny room, the battery drains noticeably faster. In my testing, a full charge gave me about 5 hours of mixed-use gaming, a bit of video editing, and web browsing, which is respectable for a laptop that's also trying to be a portable workstation, but it's nowhere near the all-day endurance you'd expect from a pure business ultrabook. Heat is the next reality check. The Core Ultra 7 255H paired with the Intel Arc GPU produces roughly 45-50 watts under load in most games. Dell's innovative interiors layout, a copper heat pipe and a dual fan system, does a decent job of spreading that heat, but the thin chassis limits how low temperatures can go. In a 30-minute stress test with Shadow of the Tomb Raider at medium settings, the CPU hovered around 85°C and the GPU nudged the low 80s. The fans kicked in at a noticeable hum, ramping up to a pitch that could be heard across a quiet office. It's not a full-blown roar, but if you're in a shared space, the noise is something you'll notice after the first 1,015 minutes of heavy play. On the upside, the fans stay fairly consistent. They don't wildly swing from whisper to scream, which means you can predict the acoustic environment once you know your load. Keyboard feel is a subtle but important part of the experience, especially when you're switching between long typing sessions and intense gaming combos. Dell kept the XPS's signature backlit island-style keys, and the travel is on the shorter side, about 1.2 mm, which feels crisp for typing but can be a little shallow for rapid key mashing in competitive games. The inclusion of a fingerprint reader under the spacebar is handy for quick Windows logins, and the backlight's RGB zones can be programmed to pulse with in-game alerts if you like that kind of flair. If you're used to a deeper travel mechanical board, you'll notice the difference, but most people adapt within a few days. Battery life, as I hinted earlier, is a trade-off that comes with the OLED and the higher-end GPU. Dell lists a 68Wh cell, and under light productivity you'll see the laptop stretch close to 10 hours. Under a 30-minute gaming session, you'll lose about 1,520% of charge. The takeaway? If you plan to game on the train or in a coffee shop without a power outlet, you'll need to manage expectations or keep a power brick handy. For a user whose primary focus is content creation, photo and video editing, 3D modeling, the battery still feels adequate because those tasks typically involve shorter, more intense bursts rather than continuous gaming. Portability is where the XPS 14 shines. At 2.9 pounds and just under 0.7 inches thick, it slides into a standard backpack without making you look like you're hauling a desktop in a bag. The aluminum chassis feels solid, and the hinge design lets you tilt the screen up to 90 degrees, which is useful if you want to connect an external monitor for a dual-screen workflow. That portability, combined with the 1TB SSD, means you can carry a sizable game library and a bunch of 4K video clips without worrying about space. Now, the big question, does